I don't know if it's going to do it, y'all.
It keeps, well, that's, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, shucks. Okay. I don't think it's going to let me do it. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I think we're ready to get started. Hello, everyone. I'm Dee from H&D Abroad. So we are trying to have a conversation. I don't know if you all can hear me. I'm getting picking up some extra background noise. So we're going to go on mute until we're talking. There we go. All right, so we are having a conversation about solo travel as married women. And so I am really excited to see Janae and Dr. Linda. They are going to share their journey with our audience today. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. So go ahead and introduce yourselves, ladies.
I was going to let Linda go first, but I'll go first.
We unmuted at the same time.
We unmuted at the same time. This is the vibe that we have. You know, we're both in Houston. You know, we're on the same vibe. My name is Janae, and I am otherwise known as the Luxury Vagabond. I live in Houston with my husband. We have 2 grown children, and I started traveling late in life. I didn't go on my first truly solo trip until I was about 47, 48 maybe. And now I am, as I've gone through this exploration process of myself and like rediscovering myself, I share that on Instagram. I share that on my YouTube channel and help other women go through that process as well. Like, we can get out there. Their age is not a hindrance for any of the things that we still want to do in life. Even if you have grown children or still have children, we're out here and we're out here to support. So that is a little bit about me.
I love it. Like you said, you started when you were 47, and I'm like, what? How old are you now? So I'm like, there's no way. Like, There's no way, first of all. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Linda, and I am also in H-Town. And I'm a wife, mom of 4 kids. My kids are pretty young, 10, 9, and the twins are 7. So if they bang on the door or ask me stuff on Alexa, it's just the kids. They already started. Yeah, and I have a YouTube channel as well, Dr. Linda Eno, where I talk about our preparation for our move abroad. We're moving to either Cameroon, Central Africa, or Cote d'Ivoire, West Africa. And I also share business advice on how to start an online business that you can support your life abroad. Excited to be here.
So, as you guys know, these are my sisters. They are people who I reach out to, whether I am, just wanting to scream. When you're at a point in your travel or move abroad process where it's not moving like you think it should, you definitely need a community of people who understand. So I reached out to my community to find out who was married and traveling solo, because I've seen a lot of people saying that they struggle with that. And I have watched Dr. Linda go to France, and I have seen Janae in
I hope she's coming back. Tech issues, guys. Tech issues.
Yes. It's just we're having one of those tech moments, And probably to add to what Dee was saying, while we wait for her to jump back in, is we got to see Linda go to. Oh, Dee is already back.
There's 2 of them now. Awesome.
Yes. She's back. So she can finish her thought on her own. No need for me to chime in.
No, as a matter of fact, go ahead, because what I'm saying is you definitely want to find community when you feel like you're the only one. And so that's what I did, just wanting to see what the other path that folks are taking and to make it visible that at any time in your life you can choose you. And find yourself again. So, what did that mean to each of you as we were kind of vetting the title?
I had to scream, I'm in a meeting. Well, to me, the title really resonated with me a lot, because that's something that actually about 7 years ago when I started having kids, well, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, I I felt like I was losing myself. As a mom, you feel like you're losing yourself. You're just changing diapers all day, and then we got kids back to back to back to back, and I was like, oh my gosh, my life is just about feeding people and catering to other people, and so I felt like I didn't know who I was anymore, and I had to take the time to look back at the things that I really enjoy doing, that I've always enjoyed doing before I had kids, before I got married. And travel was one of those things. And so just because you're married doesn't mean you can't travel. Just because you have kids doesn't mean that you can't travel. You just have to find a way to do it. And if you have to go by yourself, so be it.
Janae?
I was just going to add to what Dr. Linda is saying is it's the same thing. You get to a stage in life, especially for me and my husband, we had children young. We're at the generation where it was you meet very young, you meet when you're like in college, and you have children early. So if you are really dedicated to switching from like, now I'm a parent, right? So you go from living at home with your parents and you're under them, right? And you really don't know yourself then, you're just growing. Then you maybe go off to college, you have a little bit of this space, maybe. But if you're meeting your spouse then and you're starting a family then and you're really committed to that, you shift gears, right? And you become the wife, the mother, and you get into that role. And for me, it was the same thing. It was from one transition to the next. And I took that very seriously and very much enjoyed it, still loved it, right? But never had the time to step back to understand who I was or who I was becoming, or having more of a decision in who that person was going to be, right? Because you have so many outside influences. So just like Dr. Linda said, you look up, time will be time, right? Time will be time. And you'll look up and you will say, I kind of don't know who I am. And like, still have time, a lot of time in front of me, but I'm feeling the need now to start making some decisions to figure that out. Because otherwise you get another 10 years that goes by. And then you look up again and you're like, oh my gosh, another 10 years has gone by. And you kind of get in that cycle. And at some point you get the courage to break the cycle. Yeah.
The courage to break the cycle. I found it interesting. Finding yourself again means that you knew yourself before. So, where did you begin? Where did each of you guys begin to see that there was a difference between the person you understood you were to the person you were at whatever stage when you started recognizing?
Well, I think that for me, I don't know if there's a time, specific time when I noticed, when I realized that I wasn't the person I used to be. But I also had to realize that there are things that I'm not going back to. That's just with age, that's just with, time. I wanted to be a WNBA player. I can't go back to that dream. Okay, let's just be realistic. But there are things that I can still go back to that still bring me joy. And now I just have to find a way to bring it back in a way that includes my current life, my current circumstances. And so it's not rejecting my current circumstances and being resentful and say, oh, now that I have kids, this, or now that I'm married, I can't do this. So it's more about an appreciation of what I have and being able to bring back the things from the past that I really enjoy doing, and now sharing it with my kids, or now sharing it with my husband. And so it's like everybody can enjoy these things together. And it brings me joy, and it's a new discovery for the kids, for example. And that's how I was able to, I mean, to be honest, when the kids were like little, it was just chaos. So there was no time to think about any of that. Like, who am I? I was like in the trenches. But once they're a little more independent, that's when you're like, I can breathe a little bit. And now I can really make sense of, okay, reset. Let's think about what I can do. Like, I can't keep doing this and forgetting about myself and just getting to everybody else and losing myself in the process. So what are the things that are really important to me? The things that I always love to do, and that sometimes I'm just talking about it, but not doing anything about it. I talk about it, and then my husband is like, so what are you going to do about it now? So why don't you just go? I'm like, oh, okay, so I can go. So that's when you're like, okay, you can actually do something about it.
And similar to Linda, I would say that I never really thought about who I was. I guess because when you're so dedicated to taking in what other people perceive of you, right? Other people's lens of who you are. And especially, and I'm guilty of this myself, I know when I was younger, especially if you're in the people pleasing kind of mentality, and you start to learn, you start to be socialized and learn, being this kind of person, you get this kind of response, and there's a benefit to that. Not a question of if is it a benefit to you, it's a benefit to others, right? And so I can honestly say there was not a thought of who is Janae or any, like before this time frame, right? I needed all this life experience to get to a point where I could actually reflect on that and to actually understand, you know what, I could actually have some input in it. I really didn't think that I could decide who Janae wants to be, because I had been, I guess, leaning so much on what other people give me of who I should be, right? And so eventually I was like, oh, as I started to read books and because I just felt like something was missing. And what was missing was me. And I didn't know that, but I just felt like something is missing. Not that my life is terrible or, any of that, loving having a husband and kids and doing all the stuff with the kids. But it's like there is something missing. There's something that I had, or I was starting to blossom into before I had kids, before I got married. And some of those things, like Linda said, some of those things you bring them back. But I also was at a point where I don't know, was some of that other people or was that me? Like, did I really enjoy it? I need to explore this again and give myself the okay to explore it again. Just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I know everything, doesn't mean I know everything about myself. And I want to try some stuff. At some point, I want to try something else. So like your title, Dee, to go back to your question, your title of finding yourself again, for me, it was like really finding and determining who I'm going to be moving forward. So I am honest in saying I didn't know who I was. Okay. I was whatever everybody else needed me to be. And that was it.
You are not alone. I was my father's daughter, my mother's daughter, my sister, and then I became a wife and a mother. And it's just like all these roles, but who am I? So, okay, so each of you all are talking about recognizing changes in you, but you've got this partner that sees you every day and thinks everything is exactly how it was, probably from the time that you were married. So how did you help your spouse understand how you were changing? And then as that change was happening and you were beginning to say, I have a need to have my own space, like with traveling solo, like how did you walk them through understanding this wasn't me trying to be different from them? It's really a better understanding of myself so that I can be a better person first, a better wife, and a better mother. Be a better person.
You want to go first, Janae?
I've been kind of like letting Linda go first. I was like, oh, we're going in a circle. That's fine for me. I guess because I like structure.
I'm letting you answer the hard questions.
The hard question. Well, I will be very upfront and say that it was a difficult transition because this is not something I thought to do. And at the time, my husband and I were living and working in different cities. So it was already a difficult time. But on top of that, here I am going from that to like, I'm starting to feel a different kind of way about myself. And I want to take the time to kind of explore some of that without having constant input from another perception, right? And that's not good or bad. I'm not saying good or bad way, but just to be able to like, I need to have the blinders on to kind of think through some things. And so it was a difficult transition. And it wasn't until my husband and I were back together more and he moved back, like, because he was working up there until he moved back home, that he was able to see actually through some of the travel that I've had and kind of understand how it was starting to benefit me. Because I tell people, I'm very upfront when I say solo travel is beneficial to everyone. I encourage my husband to solo travel. I encourage my children to solo travel. It is a different type of travel, and it takes people getting to a certain point where they are at that point where they want to explore themselves as well. So it can be, I'm being upfront, it can be very difficult or challenging if you're not at that point at the same time, right? If you're like, and then especially if you like, say you like travel, and for someone else, their self-exploration is something else, right? Something that is not travel. So there's a lot of things to consider, but I would say this is that if anything, as you continue to work through it and continue to like build the understanding, don't expect everything to be smooth at the beginning. I mean, it's wonderful if it is, but personal growth on either side is not always smooth, period. Okay. So I'm just being upfront and saying it can be beautiful. You can get there. You can get to the point where you both are enjoying solo travel and your husband is like, hey, that's great. You're going with this. I see the benefit to you now, right? I understand it. But that may not be on day one. It may not be on day 45. But you have to keep going. And so for me, I took the time to start getting out there. It was kind of like I tested the waters with the house sitting, right? So it was testing the waters, testing the waters, testing the waters. It was not like I'm all the way in. It was like, let me put my foot in it. Let me do one trip. Let me see how that goes. Because remember, I'm exploring too. I'm not like, it's hard to sell something that you're trying when you don't know how it's going to go. Okay. Whether you're married or not, it's kind of hard to sell it if you have not, if you have not like tried it out and everything was okay, or you start to feel your way through. So I would tell other women that are married, if your husband is maybe not into travel or things like that, it really, if you get to a point and you have that line of communication open where they are at a point where they can understand what it's doing for you, and that it not just benefits you, but that growth benefits the family and benefits you being a better mother and things like that. And they're secure enough in knowing she ain't going nowhere. This is I mean, you know what I mean? Like what you see on the internet is sometimes, a lot of times, I would say a lot of times, not conducive to what women at certain ages are traveling for. Let's just be honest. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to, but that is not evidence of why you see women in our age group that are traveling.
Yes, I have to agree. I think that you know your partner best, and you know how to talk to them. You know, like if you have the same love language and all of that. You know, if like my husband was into travel before we met, so it was relatively easy to talk about it, because like I remember when we were dating, he would go, like we were dating and we were in different cities, and he would go to New York to see his boys on the weekends, and I was like, hey, have fun. Like it was always you need to do that for yourself. Like and so when we got married, it was more like we added that level of permission, because now we're married. It's not like, hey, I'm out for the weekend, but don't open the door. Okay. Somebody at the door. So there was that level of conversation and communication of, okay, we can travel together, but at the same time, we can also travel on our own. Granted that there was always that explanation of why it was needed, and that understanding of, okay, maybe the timing is not right. Like when we had kids, like, okay, is it for work, or is it necessary, or is it not necessary? And one thing that I always like to do, I'm a planner, and sometimes it gets on his nerves. I like to make life easy for him. I'm that kind of person. I want life to be easy for him. So when I travel, I make sure that everything is planned. And so it makes things easier for him. And at the end of the day, it makes it easy for me, because I don't have to worry about certain things, because I like things to be a certain way, right? And so I want him to enjoy the time that I'm away. It's not that it's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be away again. It's going to be hell here with these 4 kids. So I always want to make it as easy as possible for him. And I was going to say something else. I don't remember. Oh, yes. One thing that because you're talking about house sitting, one thing that we did during the pandemic, and once we were able to get back out and all of that, is that I would do mom retreats or staycation. So it would be like I would just spend the weekend at a hotel nearby, just for a night, just for tonight. And I remember the first time I was thinking about it, I was like, pandemic, everybody's home, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to explode. I need something. So my strategy was the following. I wanted to go for a night. I was like, just one night. But what I did is that I told him, babe, what do you think about you spending the weekend at a hotel? Just go and chill, do whatever you want to do, forget about me and the kids, just do whatever you want, chill. He's like, really? No, like he wasn't into it. He was like, he felt like it was a waste. I was like, no, just go and chill, do whatever you want, spend 2 nights. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna go. And he went and he was like, man, this was the best thing ever. I watched football all day, I chilled on the bed. I was like, right, it was awesome, right? Now I want to go now next weekend. Like he was like, of course, go, right? Because he had a taste of what it was like. And so I wanted him to enjoy that. I wanted because I know how good it is for me, and I want him to have that as well. And so now I think he takes more solo trips than me because yeah. But I want him to I push him to do that because I know how important it is for me. Time away from home is, even if it's just to go to the grocery store and not think about anything. So I push it on him as much as I push it on myself. So that's what I wanted to say.
I, once they see the benefit. So I typed in the chat, Dr. Linda's marriage strategy game is strong. So what I want to, another area that I think, besides talking to your partner, is sometimes
I'm sure Dee is going to pop back in any minute, any minute. I was going to say, Dr. Linda, that's wonderful that y'all had travel beforehand, because we didn't have that. We didn't have the travel beforehand. We're having a side conversation, Dee.
Yeah.
oh no, what? Tell me about, because I think sometimes there is a emotional fallout, feeling guilty. So let's just be upfront. Did anybody have to navigate feeling guilty or other negative emotions about wanting to pull away? And how how did you work through it?
I think so, yes. I think that definitely. And I don't think it's guilt anymore. I think that it's more worry for me because it's a lot to handle. It's just logistically, it's lot to handle. And I think that I overcompensated with over planning, and that gets on his nerves. Like, you don't think I'm a human being? Like, I know how to live a life as a regular person. I don't need you to micromanage everything. But I'm like, just to make sure. But anyways, so guilt at the beginning, yes, I did feel a lot of guilt for living and for living my quote unquote best life away from them. But at the end of the day, I knew that he understood why it was necessary. There was always a reason. It wasn't just so that I'm away to be away. It's either, well, for work, or it's because I need some time off, or because I need to spend time with my friends, or for business opportunities. There was always a reason that made sense to both him and I. So it was never like quote unquote wasted. We never felt like it was just because I want to be away. There was always that understanding of there's a purpose in every single one of those trips that I'm taking away from the family. Now there's no guilt anymore because I really drill down on, okay, the purpose outweighs the trouble, right? So that's how I'm trying to be as logical as possible with the whole thing. Like, if I'm going to Paris, there was a purpose. It wasn't just to go and leave the La Belle Vie and all that. Sure, it's all that too, but there was a purpose behind it. And so it justifies, and it outweighs the difficulty of staying back. That's how I see it now.
Janae?
I was in a very different space than Linda, because Linda has more children and they're smaller, right? When she started traveling, which, by the way, I was on that Paris trip with you, girl. I was there. watching you. I was like, oh, she's in Paris without the kids and all. I was so happy to see it, but mostly because I know what it does. I know what it brings and how it really helps you build up who you are, to have those opportunities away. So for me, it was the children were already older. They were still at home, but they were older. So for me, it went from, and honestly, my first solo trip, I have to say this, my first solo trip almost was not a solo trip because I've always traveled, if not with my husband, with the children. I've always traveled with them, no matter what the cost or what, that was always in the plan, right? So even as they got older, they were still going to Mexico with me. They have still been. So it really came down to, everything came together where it was like, they're older and maybe this one is working or this one, and so they couldn't go, even though I had offered for them to come. So it was almost one of those where it was like universal, came to, and it was kind of like, at that point, it was like, are you okay going alone? So when you talk about the negative emotions, I have to say by that time, because I had been traveling with the children, I started to understand, and we had family trips. I was starting to understand I actually really do enjoy travel. Like I enjoy travel more than having a bigger home, buying, expensive shoes at home and bags and like, but I didn't know that about myself because I didn't have time to explore that before that, right? My husband and I, we really were not well traveled. We could not afford to when we were young parents. So how am I supposed to know that I enjoy this particular thing? I didn't know. And so when I went, I didn't have negative emotions because by that time I had enough experience to be like, you know what? I'm kind of afraid. If anything, I was afraid to go solo. Okay. It was more like, but I was like, you know what? At this point, at some point you have to get over this hurdle. And so I went with fear. I would say that would be my only negative emotion, was going and having that fear. And I was like, the fear is going to have to go with me because at some point I'm going to have to get over the fact I'm not going to have someone always there. And if that's a hindrance, then that means I can't go. I don't want my life to be like that. I don't want, my life to be one of, I only travel for work. I only travel when my kids or my husband are available. And I never get a chance to go to places that I know nobody else is interested in going but me. But that means in my lifetime, I don't go. I didn't think that was right. By that time, I got to the point where I was like, I didn't think that was right. And I would not put that on. I would wish the same for my husband, too. There are things that I know he probably wants to experience in life. I do not want to be the reason, him being married to me, that he doesn't experience that in his own life, because I really do believe we have a life together. And we also have certain things in lives as individuals, and both can exist. Both can exist. You don't have to throw the other one away.
Even traveling for work, and I've traveled extensively for work our entire marriage. I took our kids when I was nursing. My mom traveled with me, so domestic travel has always been either with the family or with the kids or with someone else. And now I'm intentionally traveling alone. It's just different. I think I don't have to, if I don't want to do anything, I don't have to do anything. I decide where I eat. It's really liberating to feel that and embrace it, and then come back and have something to share with my partner about something I learned or saw. It brings a little bit of the dating aspect back into our relationship. And I think we're always looking at ways to refresh and stay connected in new ways. And I think that's what solo travel has meant for me specifically. So as we are, you know, as we're looking at travel, I was surprised neither one of you all talked about guilt of taking not just time away, but money away from your family traveling, because that was a big area for me. Was we're already we got 3 kids in private school sometimes, or I was not working so that I could homeschool. And so it was like, and then I'm going to take this money and drive or fly somewhere else. Did you ever have to navigate the financials of kind of being selfish both with your person and uh, taking funds that could have been allocated for something else to use for you?
That's a great point because in our relationship, I am more frugal in a way. Like I don't buy a lot of things for myself. And my husband can come in the house with a new pair of shoes, like it's no big deal because he's a smart spender. And I spend money on the kids, on him, on the house, right? I rarely spend money on myself. And so even for the Paris trip, we were at the ATM. I was supposed to, like, the morning of, I was getting some cash. So he's like, so what are you gonna do with money? How much money are you gonna take? And I was like, I don't know, like $500. I wanted to be like frugal. I didn't want to be like spending the house money. Like we're supposed to be. He's like, what? I'm not gonna say the amount, but he's like, take that, and I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. I mean, don't you want to buy stuff and have fun with your friends and eat out? I'm like, yeah. And so, like, he's the one. He like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes men have no issues with enjoying experiences. It's like to the fullest because they understand that it requires money and they're okay with it. Like I said, my husband is a very smart spender. He will buy one pair of shoe that is going to last him 3 years. That's a smart spend. But I'm going to be like, ooh, that little pair, it might hurt my feet, but it's $10. Let me go and buy it. Oh, that one, oh yeah, I might just wear it like twice. Let me go and buy it. That's not smart spending, right? And so if it costs more, let it be. If it's a direct flight, but it's like $300 more, let it be. Do the direct flight. He's more about the convenience, and I appreciate that about him because otherwise, I'm more like complicated as long as it's cheap. But he's like direct, more convenient. I don't want to hear any complaint, and let's spend the money. So when it comes to the money, I didn't have to feel guilty about it because he was like, you're going away there, spend the money. Like money comes and goes. Like we can like that's my favorite phrase when he's like, there's money coming next week. I'm like, music to my ear. Like, so he's like, spend the money. It's important to spend the money that for the things that you need that are important. If it's frugal, because he understands too that I don't spend on frivolous stuff. So he trusts me and I trust him as well in those decisions. And so sometimes I need his reassurance because otherwise I was going to go to Paris for $500. I don't know how long it was going to last. But I needed that reassurance to be like, go for it, do it. It's okay. It's fine. You deserve it. We got this. So that's my money guilt story.
I love it, Linda. I love it. Yeah, I was just thinking it's again different phase of life, right? So older when I'm doing this. So by this time, we went through a phase where we're like most young couples, where if you start with nothing, you do everything together. That means all your finances are commingled, everything, right? You don't know how people like to spend. You don't know your relationship with money. You don't know your partner's relationship with money. That's a whole nother video. Okay. Yeah. You don't know, right? And you don't know what's important with it for them either, as far as what they spend their money that they earn on. You don't know what you like to spend your money on, right? Because everything is commingled. So eventually, like later in our marriage, right, we separated our accounts. We have the house account, right, for the bills, for everything for the house. And then, which I believe is really important, that each of us have our own money to ourselves to spend however you want. If the house and the kids are taken care of, go buy the jet. I don't care. Whatever it is you want to spend your money on, go do it. You see what I mean? Because you really do need that liberty over your finances. And I have to say this. Women we have been trained to feel guilty about spending the money that we make a certain way. I'm the first one to say it, because for so many years your money goes to the house, your money goes, there's always something else that can be needed, right? There's always something else more valuable than you spending the money on yourself. The house needs this, the kids needs this. There's always going to be something else that you can do. And or even if you want to give something to your spouse or whatever, but you need to be able to be in control of your finances, right? And we're saying everything else is taken care of. We ain't talking about you not taking care of your responsibilities. It's just that as women, we are told that we need to be told how to spend our money. And no, we don't. We do not need to know how to spend our money. I will add what Dr. Linda says, that when she was saying her husband encourages her to like, go ahead and spend the money, it's worth it. That's because it's in direct opposite of how we are socialized as women with our finances, right? We're supposed to be thrifty. We're not supposed to be spending money on certain things. If we spend money, it's almost like we need to have permission to spend it, right? And how much we're supposed to spend. My husband is the same way as your husband, as far as he is like, pay more for the extra flight, right? To direct flight. I want to pay for convenience, and those things are worth it. And I value the fact that he is more of a, if it's worth it to you, spend the money. And so I truly believe that now I don't have a problem with that. In fact, it's kind of like, these are the house bills. And I've figured out like there was no guilt by the time I traveled with money, because I was spending my part of my money, my discretionary income. We both have discretionary income. And I know, like, I grew up with the Dave Ramsey, like, you're supposed to have everything commingled, and that was the old. Okay, I'm just going to say there is a value in you learning to handle money as a woman. And if that means at the end, you figure out that you have this much and you want to spend it on personal training, travel, whatever it is, you need to learn how to make that happen for yourself and then spend it accordingly. Because I expect my husband to do the same thing. Enjoy your money. You are putting the energy to make that money. It does not all belong to me and the children. You need to go and do stuff with your money. So a little bit, like I said, a little bit different, because, you know, I was later in life, and this was like part of a lot of stuff that was happening in my life, and how I was reassessing how I was spending money. And even with that, this is the last thing I'm going to say about the finance thing. That is why I became a house sitter, because I needed a way to marry. I am thrifty, and I haven't got to the point where I'm okay with, I haven't given myself permission to spend the money truly the way I want. So how I'm going to marry that with the fact that I really want to travel, because I'm going to be real sad if I don't have no trips, because I have to spend $3,000 every time I leave this house. Okay. That's not going to happen. So I started to find ways to be creative. And that's why I say, you know, I'm a life hack specialist, because I can hack anything. I had to figure out a way how to get those things to match, so that I can be authentic to my savings and my goals of being financially independent one day and being good with money. I want to be great with money, not just good. I want to be great, but I also still want to enjoy life. So that's how I started house sitting. And you find a way. If you get creative, you will find a way. And so that's why I didn't really feel guilty about the money. I wasn't spending much money. I really wasn't spending much money at all to travel.
Yeah, it got easier when I added house sitting. So I'm going to do a side note. I have a whole playlist on Black women house sitting. House sitting is when you exchange receiving free accommodations for performing a service for another family, whether that is taking care of a pet, watering plants, getting their mail. But I have the cost of my lodging there's no cost to me. And so that has worked well for me. I know what level of responsibility I want to have, and so I have as little or as much as I feel like serves me with that time away. But in the description of this video, I have my discount code if you are interested in learning more about house sitting, and the playlist for house sitting. The other thing I want to make sure is I see your comment, Sarah, and I want to, I was really particular in who I invited to this session today. Um, I've been married for 25 years. I've been with my husband. We've been together for 31 and a half years. Janae, you and Dr. Linda can share a little bit about your relationship, but I'm not asking to leave my husband because I have been distrustful in my relationship. I am not, my husband knows me and knows me well, and that I am both meticulous in how I approach him with new opportunities and new things, that I'm respectful in not just sharing what I want, but also listening to his concerns, and we navigate them together, and that it is my goal to not just get my way in my marriage. I am a partner. My husband is my friend first. And so to show myself to be that friend that is, how do I want to say that? To show the respect that a friend shows another friend, and then show that respect at a higher level from spouse to spouse, is how we is how we conduct ourselves. But I think most critical that women of my generation, so I'm over 50, what I've seen in the women that were in front of me is that they learned, they left their father's house, they came to their husband's house, they were married 30, 40, 50 years. And because they had not pulled away, because they had not learned to live life both as a married person and their ability to make decisions and take care of responsibilities from a solo perspective, when they lost that spouse, it was earthquake shattering. Where they were completely lost, where they had no sense of themselves or confidence in their ability to move forward in life. And I said, if my biggest fear as a married woman is that I no longer have my protector, my spouse, my champion with me, is that I need to develop confidence for myself and to show my partner that there are no worries here. I will I understand how to run the house. I understand how to care for the kids. I understand how to do the things to continue to live. And so that is a commitment that I have to myself. It's something that I encourage my husband to do as well. And so I'm wanting to say that for there to be a level playing field here. Ain't nobody out here trying to break up marriages by talking about solo travel. What we're saying is that marriage requires thoughtfulness and respect and an understanding of your growth and your growth needs. And so these are ways that women who respect their partners grow. Okay. And that you can grow with confidence. Your partner can have confidence in your ability to hear their concerns, that you pursue that. Hey, I'm not just trying to get permission. I'm out here really trying to be mm, I'm not the same person. We met at 19, I'm 51. Really? If you're expecting that, then we've missed something. And so I wanted to make sure that I said that in this space as well. Dr. Linda, Janae, y'all can comment on that as well.
You said it with a lot of grace. I don't think, to be honest, that I would have as much grace in my answer. So thank you.
I was going to say, I think it's one of those where we've been told a lot of times in life that you can't have both. Like you can't have a strong marriage and be a woman that travels, and you can't travel with your husband and your kids and travel by yourself. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can do all of those things, and there's a reason why you do all of those things. There's also times where you can travel, and you should travel only with your children, not with your spouse and children, but just with your children, because they need to see you in a different light too. There's a reason behind why you can have all these different experiences if you allow yourself to have them, and it doesn't mean anything other than you are having different experiences in life so that you can learn about you. You can learn about the person you go on the trip with. And I have to be on it in saying this and I didn't read all of the comment, but I did kind of see it come through. But there is a difference in how you are when you are in exploration mode, right? So let's say I am traveling alone, and that trip is very different because I can choose how open and close I am to meeting new people in whatever circumstance. Okay. So it's unfortunate, but in society, if you are with someone else, and it could be a friend, it doesn't even, you could be with your spouse, a friend. If you are with someone else, people are less likely to approach you. Okay. When you are traveling solo, my total experience has been when you are traveling solo and people aware and see you sitting solo at a table, or they see you doing something, attending a class, and you're there by yourself, they're more likely to engage with you because there's not this barrier of she's a married woman and I can't talk to her, or she's with her friend and all of her presence is with that person. When you travel with someone else, you're giving that person you're traveling with most of your presence. And when you travel solo, it's just you. So you're present with yourself, right? It's a very different mindset to be in. And going back to what Dr. Linda said, where her husband, he knows what she does and who she is and how she travels. I go to Mexico a lot. I go to Tulum a lot. Tulum can be whatever kind of trip you want it to be, but it's not just the location. If there's a person that travels a certain way, they gonna do that in Detroit or they gonna do that in Tulum. Do you see what I'm saying? But for me, it doesn't matter if that's the type of way they like to travel. But for me, my husband knows me and my girlfriend, or even if I go by myself, I'm pretty much like the social old lady. I mean, if anything, I'm like, I will have 30 friends by the time I leave. I am sitting on the beach and I'm listening to audiobooks and I'm doing worksheets and I'm playing in the water like I'm a child. I am so he knows, I'm eating all the great food. I'm talking to all the waiters. You have to know that my spouse, and I know the way my husband travels, he's not sitting at the bar. He's not, you know what I mean? So there's no, in this, my husband is a person too. He is my husband. He's sharing life with me, but he does not belong to me and I don't belong to him. We are sharing this experience of life together. And so I need him and I want him to go and travel the way he likes to travel, go solo. I guarantee you there are people he has met that he would have never met if he were traveling with me. Why? Because he's on his own schedule. He can stay and talk to those people as long as he wants. We don't have no plans. He doesn't have to get back to the hotel and worry about the plans we had. None of that happens. He can meet somebody on a street corner, which he has done, and end up with a brand new friend 4 hours later. And they invite him to do something with them. Those experiences do not happen as often because in society we have these blockers that are up when you are traveling with a spouse, with a friend, with a partner. And so if you recognize that, you don't have a fear and there's no conflict between traveling with others and traveling solo. That's all I wanted to say.
If this is, I put up servant teacher Nikki's comment.
She'll be back. But that was a great answer, Janae. I mean, both of you have great answers.
Servant teacher Nikki's comment about, some things work for some marriages. Um, if you want to talk to your partner, I think probably the most important thing to share with them is why. Why is it important for you to travel solo? If there are safety concerns, things that I've done in the past, this is where I'm staying. These are places I will make sure that I text you where the area that I'm going to be in. Not necessarily all my movements, but for an awareness, because there is a concern that many men have about, you being alone. But I think if there are trust issues, that is a deeper issue. And I definitely, on this channel, I say it all the time with every conversation. You may want to be in a moderated counseling relationship where you can speak without judgment your concerns, and your partner can do the same, so that you're working together to hear each other and then working toward a plan where there is trust, because sometimes people come from family histories where there is very few examples where there are two trusting people in a relationship. And so I think, I'm not saying that, if there's a struggle, there's a problem in your marriage. I'm saying that it may present something that you may need support in navigating. If you don't need no extra skills and you don't need no help, that's between you and your partner. But I think it's worth digging. I think it's worth digging into. So, um, I think as we are coming up on an hour together, I wanted to make sure that um, that we kind of launched into, as you have spent time finding yourself again, and you are seeing the petals of your life bloom. How is that impacting your sense of self, your confidence, things that you're moving into that you might never have considered doing in your former self, where you were, kind of in the mommy bubble, the wife bubble, the worker bubble?
This is a perfect what you just said about understanding each other as partner. It's a perfect illustration, because even as you evolve, there are things, like, because we're talking about thinking things from our past as an individual that we want to bring back, but there are also things that you develop as a married woman, as a mom, that you want to carry on, like you become another person. And but there are great things that come with that. I strongly believe that I would not be an entrepreneur if I hadn't met my husband, because my path was, I'm going to work in an office. I like office work, right? But he had that business mind when we met, and the I can do anything, and he had that confidence, and I was like, what? Where is, like, how is that possible? And so I was like, I want some of that too. I want that confidence to know that I can do whatever I want, because I want to do whatever I want. And so it was hard for me as to touch on that when I had those attachment as a wife, as a mom. And so slowly but surely, and the first thing, that big thing, my big moment, I would say, is when I quit my job, because it was a big change in the path that we were on. And so, but he was there to encourage me and everything. And so now that I'm in business, and now that he's in business as well, we morphed into something new. And I wouldn't be the person I am now. This whole move abroad thing, I've always wanted to go back to Africa and all of that, but it wouldn't have looked this way if I wasn't married to my husband. And so I'm loving this new person that I'm becoming because I'm taking elements from the past, elements from the present, all of that, and building this new person that is not Linda from when I was 18, 19, or even 25 or 28. Is a new one that I have permission to create and to evolve. Linda, when she's 60, is not going to be the Linda at 43. And so I forgot your question, but the point is that it's what was the question? Sorry, I got carried away with the.
No, no, just the with this blooming, where do you see yourself today, and how it looks different from that person from the beginning of your process?
Yeah, so that it's I'm enjoying the transformation, and I don't expect to be the person I was before I was married. That's my point. I don't want to be the person I was when I was 30, when I was 25. That's a different person. I want to be me, a better me, as I evolved in life, God willing. I want to have permission to change. And I want my husband to have permission to change. And he's not the person he was when he was 18. And we're both evolving in life as individuals, but also as a married couple, because the goals that we have today are crazy goals, and they're not the goals that we had when we were just married and we were trying to find jobs, right? And so I'm loving this process that we are both evolving into as individuals and as a family as well.
I love that, Linda. And same here. I feel like I definitely am not trying to be who Janae was at 20 or at 30. I had an idea of who I was going to be at 40. I don't want to be that person who had an idea of who she was going to be at 40 either. I want to continue to allow myself to be what is fulfilling at the time that I'm supposed to experience it. So, to your point, I don't expect me at 60 to be, I don't know what me at 60 looks like, right? Right now, I'm piecing together things that I know create joy and happiness in my life, that bring light to me, like spiritually, and people see that light, and that tells me I'm on the right path, right? That tells me I'm on the right path, where people are like, oh, we see you shining, we see you shining. It's like, yes, then I know I'm on the right path. But to what Dee was saying, like, what I guess maybe what I found out about myself or whatever, I really didn't know all the effort I put into, say, raising the children, or like homeschooling or things like that. I really didn't know that all that effort and creativity, that I could use it for myself. I'm just being honest. Because as a mom, you know how you figure stuff out. Like, you're going to get it done. You're going to figure a way. And even when you're a young couple, you're going to figure out together how to get stuff done. And that takes a lot of creativity, right? And a lot of work. But I really didn't know that I could use that for myself, like Janae, the individual person. And once I started doing that, I did feel really empowered. I mean, it was part of, like, the solo travel was just like a little like extra on there, as far as it made me feel, you know what? You don't need to fear these things anymore. You can, just like you figure out everything else for the kids, or just like you and a husband figure out everything for the household, and just how, girl, you can figure it out for yourself too. You can use that creativity for yourself. And I found that I'm actually a lot more creative, and I've given myself, I guess it's giving myself the permission to think even further, kind of outside the box that I had put myself in. I mean, people enforce it too. People enforce that box, but staying in that, it allowed me. So now I feel extremely confident in my choices, which is something I desperately needed. And a lot of times I may have been confident in maybe decisions I'm making for the children for school, right? We learn to get our confidence through making decisions. But if you don't ever make decisions about you yourself, how do you gain confidence in that area? You couldn't tell me nothing about like vetting schools for kids, what they need to be learning. I knew that, right? You couldn't tell me anything about like how to budget for a household and things like I could get that down. You need to know how to be thrifty. Girl, I got you on that too. But but when it came to being confident about making decisions for me, I did not have that confidence. And so this process has really given me that confidence as a better decision maker. I feel, and it doesn't make I make the right decision all the time. I want to make this clear. Doesn't mean I'm making the right decision all the time. It means I have confidence to deal with whatever my choices are, right? Doesn't mean I'm getting it right all the time. I don't expect to get it right all the time. But at least I'm confident in my decision-making capabilities. I'm not like weighing on everyone else to decide for me. So that has been huge in this process for me.
I am so honored to have shared this space with you all today. I just want to shine a light that that emotional growth, emotional intelligence, not just toward others, but to yourself, is important at every phase and stage of your life. There are different reasons that motivate you. Stay motivated to get to know yourself first, and then share your discovery with your partner, with your children. People may begin to recognize a boldness in how you speak, where they see you're making different movements in the world, career changes, letting things go. You don't argue about certain things anymore because you are growing. I'm encouraging you to take time, whether you're married or not. Over your life, you should be taking stock of who you are. And if that means that you need to have time away from your everyday things to take stock in that, sometimes you just need to be able to take a rest, take a nap, feed yourself well, spend significant time in nature or quiet, so that you can recognize you are changing. If it's nothing but in your everyday life. So we're talking about taking trips, but have you looked at yourself in the mirror? Not to put on your makeup, but to look at your changing body, your changing face, your changing smile, um, and to respect it, and to honor all that you have experienced in the past, but to open the door to all of the possibilities that are just waiting for you to say yes to. I said yes to solo travel because it was scary and I had never done it before. Say yes to the things that scare you. I thank Shonda Rhimes for her book that gave me that statement. Say yes to the things that scare you, because I promise you, there's you're moving, the finish line just a little bit farther when you push yourself into new spaces and new experiences. May you do it safely. May you do it confidently. May you find communities, whether it is Exodus Summit, which is where I found Dr. Linda and Janae, whether it's Exodus Summit, an accountability group, a book club, you know, friends that go to concerts together. May you find a tribe that encourages you to stretch and know and value yourself. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let's see, Dr. Linda, can you let folks know where to find you on the internet and on social media, and the same for you, Janae?
Absolutely. You can find me on YouTube and IG at Dr. Linda NO.
And you can find me on YouTube and Instagram as The Luxury Vagabond. You'll see anything about travel or anything about my life. one of the things, I know we're ending, but I forgot to mention that another thing Linda and I have in common is we now both work for ourselves, and you've been doing it way before me, but it's just to add to what Dee is saying about the growth as you're going through this process. Things in your life will shift and change along with your mindset and the steps you're making. And if you need to start saying yes to get those things moving, and see what happens and see what happens.
Okay, we're going to say good night. The techs are teching. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Dr. Linda. Thank you, Janae. Thank you to our audience who stuck with us tonight. Have a good one. We'll see you soon.